Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Dynamic GT League announcement regarding the boost on GT7. There have been some comments about how GT7 Boost is different, odd, not working compared to GT Sport, and there have been some comments about the boost changing in the last few laps of races. The admins are going to complete some tests, and the admins' tests to complete are: number one, see what level of boost is applied on GT7 across a number of positions on both the weak and strong boost settings. Number two, to see if the boost changes depending on the distance between the cars. 3, to see if the boost changes at different stages of a race. And 4, see if what we find on GT7 Boost worked in the same way on GT Sports Boost. How the admins conducted the tests. Number one, the 4 admins will take the currently used car, the Toyota Junior, on GT7 to the Daytona Oval for a 10-lap test on the weak boost setting, and all the other settings on the current settings used in the league. This will allow them to drive the vehicle at a constant full speed on each lap completed and on exactly the same line around the track. Number 2, to see what the lap time difference is, if it changes depending on the distance between the cars, and the following process will be used. In a 10-lap race setting, SGP will drive 4 laps while the other 3 wait at the start. Once SGP has completed his run, he will pull over and SRI will start a 4-lap run and then pull over next to SGP. Demon R will now start his 4-lap run and pull over next to SGP and SRI. Now Steve F1 will start his 4-lap run and then pull over. This test allows us to compare the lap times from all 4 positions and to see if the lap times change from being 4 laps down, then 3 laps down, then 2 laps down, and then on the same lap. The next stage of the test will be that SGP and SRI will now drive off, get up to the racing speed, getting 1 lap ahead of Demon R and Steve F1, who will then drive off, get up to speed, and then race each other. This test is again to check if the boost amount changes on being a lap down and then getting closer to the cars ahead, but also to see the level of difficulty of getting alongside each other, stroke being able to pass, while also seeing if the lap times and boost amounts change in the latter stages of a race. The next test will also be done in a 10-lap race setting to check if there is any difference to boost levels when all the cars are spread out. SGP will move off from the line and take up a position halfway around the final corner. SRI will take up a position halfway down the back straight. Demon R will take up a position halfway around the first corner, and Steve F1 will position on the start-finish line. All drivers will then drive off at the same time. This test will allow us to see what lap times each driver does and how the distances between the drivers change during the course of the test and in comparison to the first test that was done. And part 6 of this is to redo stages 1 to 5 on the strong boost setting. So, test results of the weak boost 4-lap results. On the screen we've got the lap time runs. Now lap 1 was getting up to speed lap for each driver. So SGP, his first time lap was a 1 minute 0.6. Lap 2 and lap 3 was a 1 minute 0.6. And then lap 4 was a 1 minute 0.5. SRI also did a 1 minute 0.7, then a 1 minute 0.6 and a 1 minute 0.5. Hardly anything between them. Demon R then gets a 56.0, a 56.0 and a 56.0. And Steve F1 on his 4-lap run does a 56.1, a 56.0 and a 56.0. Our conclusion to this part of the test is that first and second place are doing the same lap times while getting no boost. Third and fourth are both getting boost at the same rate and are able to do the same lap times as each other. There is no increase or decrease of lap time when each driver got closer to SGP in distance. And now the strong boost 4-lap result. Same situation again, lap 1 was getting up to speed. SGP's lap 2 was a 1 minute 3.7, lap 3 was a 1 minute 3.7, and lap 4 was a 1 minute 3.7. SRI, lap 2 was a 1 minute 0.5, and lap 3 was a 1 minute 0.5, and lap 4 was a 1 minute 0.6. Demon R did a 57.0, a 57.0 and a 57.0, with Steve F1 doing a 57.1, a 57.1 and a 57.1. Our conclusion to this is, what the fuck? Yes, you are seeing it right, and it blew our minds. On the strong boost setting, SGP's speed and lap times were reduced by 3 seconds than before. SRI's lap times are the same as before, while both Demon R and Steve F1 are getting boost at the same level as each other, but 1 second slower than before. This, although seeming very odd, does give a net gain to those getting boost compared to first place, who is being slowed down. There is a big asterisk here though regarding the leader's reduction of speed and time, and there's more important information coming on that. However, the boost that Demon R and Steve F1 were getting is less boost compared to SRI. Demon R and Steve F1 are now gaining on SRI 1 second slower than before, but overall catching SGP 2 seconds faster than before, even though they are lapping 1 second slower than before. In a nutshell, first place is slowed down, second place gets no boost, third and fourth get the same amount of boost, and there is no increase or decrease of lap time when each driver got closer to SGP in distance. There is though another asterisk here with more information to come. The second stage of the tests on the weak boost racing, the lap times that drivers were able to do was the same as the first 4-lap run test. First and second doing the same lap times with no boost, while third and fourth having the boost and doing the same lap times as each other. There was no increase or decrease of boost as Demon R and Steve F1 got closer to SGP and SRI. They were able to unlap themselves, but they did not get close enough to catch them. In regards to the racing ability of the boost for Demon R and Steve F1, both drivers felt they could slipstream easily and get alongside, but not progress any further. There was some grip loss in the corners, dropping the car behind back a little, but they could easily catch up and get alongside again. For the leading two, they found the only way to complete an overtake was on the inside, but not easy by a long shot, with SRI saying he could get alongside SGP on the outside, but could not pass. The second stage of the test with the strong boost racing, this is where it got a little interesting. The lap times for the leading two are now the same again, with no boost and both drivers doing consistent 1 minute 0.4s. SGP is now not being slowed down. Demon R and Steve F1 are getting boost at the same rate as each other and are doing consistent 0.57 zeros. So now they are not getting a net gain over the leader and are catching both SRI and SGP 1 second slower than the weak boost test. They did end up further behind at the finish. In regards to the racing ability of the setting, for Demon R and Steve F1 there did not seem to be that little loss of grip in the corners, meaning they had more of a constant slipstream at a stable distance that would allow them to catch and get alongside, but not with a big slipstream. For the leading two, they found the only way to complete an overtake was on the inside again, but not easy by a long shot, with SRI saying he could get alongside SGP on the outside, but could not pass. Now, the same lap, same gap test weak boost setting, this is where all the drivers were at the start-finish line, turn one, halfway down the back straight and the final corner. In this test, it took for all drivers to get up to speed for the timing of the gaps to be relevant. Once all drivers were up to speed, SGP and SRI were doing the same lap times as the first test, 1 minute zeros, and getting no boost, meaning that SRI could not catch SGP at all. Demon R and Steve F1 were both getting boost at the same rate as each other and doing the same lap times of 0.56s, or 56 zeros. Steve F1 was not able to close the gap to Demon R, however, both drivers were closing the gap to SRI and SGP. Demon R managed to catch up to SRI on the last lap, But as soon as he was within 1 second of SRI, his speed and lap time dropped and he stayed 1 second behind, with some small fluctuations with slipstream until the test ended. Steve F1 was still getting the boost and now started to catch Demon R and SRI. He got within 1 second of Demon R on the last lap, and again his speed then dropped to match the lap times that cars with no boost can achieve. The gap to SGP could not be closed. The same lap, same gap test with the strong boost setting. Well, in this test it took for all drivers to get up to speed for the timing of the gaps to be relevant. Once all drivers were up to speed, SGP's speed was again slower, only capable of doing 1 minute 3.6s. SRI again was doing the same lap times as all the previous tests, the 1 minute 0.6, and now catching SGP at 3 seconds a lap. Demon R and Steve F1 again had the same amount of boost as each other, but at a reduced rate, only allowing them to do lap times of 57 seconds. 1 second slower than before, but overall catching SGP quicker and catching SRI slower. Now for the important part of this test. As soon as SRI got within 1 second of SGP, SGP's speed increased and so did his lap time, but only to the same level of lap time that SRI was doing, the 1 minute 0.6s. Now within that 1 second, SRI couldn't really get any closer to SGP. Demon R and Steve F1 were still getting the same boost and lap times, and again Steve F1 was not catching Demon R, but they both were catching the leader SGP and SRI. This time, Demon R caught SRI sooner in this test, but as soon as he got within the 1 second to SRI, his speed dropped and he could not get any closer. Steve F1 now closes in on Demon R and gets to within 1 second of Demon R, and his speed reduces, and he can now no longer get any closer. For the following lap, the gaps between the cars stayed the same, with all four finishing close together. In conclusion, the strong boost works in an odd way, but it does stop a leader from running away, which might sound like a great idea. However, when things like pit stops are brought in, it then has the potential for an awful knock-on effect. For example, if first and second have a gap to third and first pits, second will suddenly start lapping 3 seconds a lap slower. Fair? Those cars in the pack getting boost will take longer to catch up or get back into the race, and then find themselves in the same situation that is about to be described about the weak boost. But it does seem as though once cars have got closer together, then it is quite tough to get alongside each other. From the tests we have done, we feel we can say that on the weak boost setting, the front half of the grid gets no boost, while the second half of the grid all get boost at the exact same rate as each other. However, we have not tested this with more cars, and at this point we'll say if any of the drivers want to join us in doing one of these tests on GT7 with more cars, then let us know. But what we have seen in the races so far this season is the top 5 or 6 are getting no boost and are capable of doing similar lap times as each other. The second half of the field all get boost until they are within 1 second of the first car that is not getting boost. That first car that is not getting boost does change, as I will now explain. Those cars getting boost are getting it at the same rate as each other, with the potential of lapping faster than those with no boost. But, and it is a big but, once they are within 1 second of that first car that is getting no boost, then they lose the boost too, and become that first car to get no boost. Because they now have no boost when the car behind them gets within 1 second of them, they lose their boost too, and they become the first car with no boost, and so on down the field. What happens here then is the pack cannot catch the leading cars because the boost cuts off halfway through the field. The boost though is not there so everyone can catch the leaders. What we do see is that it seems too easy to get alongside another car in the pack, or drivers are putting their cars in places they shouldn't be, resulting in slower lap times than are possible. So if you catch the car ahead, you are not going to pass them easily and time will be lost, and that is why driving standards need to improve so everyone can go faster. Just to recap that, if 6th place is not getting boost and there is a gap to 7th, 7th will get boost until they are within 1 second of 6th. 8th will continue to get boost until they are within 1 second of 7th. Now, if 9th and 10th are within 1 second of each other, but are 10 seconds behind 8th, they both will get full boost until they catch that car that has no boost. Now, if all the cars from 6th to 12th stayed in single file within 1 second of each other, they would lose the boost but be capable of faster lap times compared to going 3, 4, 5 wide. This losing of the boost is also the reason why, if you are in last place some distance behind the pack, then the boost may seem super strong to the cars ahead if they're all close together. You are not getting more boost than before, they are just getting less. From the tests that we have done on the strong boost, we feel we can say that the front half of the grid gets no boost and the second half of the grid gets boost at the same rate as each other until they are within 1 second of the first car that gets no boost. However, all the cars getting boost will be slower than if we had the weak boost setting on, and the leader will only have a reduction in speed if they get more than 1 second ahead of second place. Other than that, the system works exactly the same way as I have just described about the weak boost. Is this different from GT Sport? Well, we wanted to recreate this test on GT Sport, however there is no Daytona oval on it. So we went to Blue Moon Raceway Tri-Oval, found a car that could take all the corners flat out easily. It was the Mazda Roadster touring car, reduced in power and given racing tyres so that the car will handle and won't top out in gears. We fully recreated all the tests on GT Sport. And the GT Sport conclusion? It works exactly the same way as GT7, or should that be GT7 works exactly the same way as GT Sport. There is no difference. Weak boost worked the same with the lap times and gaps. Strong boost worked the same way with the lap times and gaps, slowing down the leader if they got 1 second ahead. Well, there was one difference. In the test races when Demonar and Steve F1 were together but a lap down, they could get alongside and complete an overtake on the weak boost. However, that could have been because of the nature of the track. Does boost change in the last few laps of races? We can 100% confirm the boost does not change in the last few laps to close the gaps. In all the tests completed, there was no change in speed or lap time in the last few laps. What Dave experienced in the race at Lake Maggiore can be explained in the details of that race. On lap 37, there was a crash that spread out the pack. Because of that spreading, all those drivers now got boost and the gaps to be able to use it because they were far away from that first car with no boost, who was Steve F1. Steve, now with the pack not up his arse, was able to do his fastest laps of the race, which were not boost laps for laps 38 and 39. On laps 38 and 39, all the cars with the boost that are now spread out do go faster than they had done in the rest of the race, but not faster than was previously capable with the boost. At the same time, Dave the Harp had his only lap with a small error that cost him about 1.5 seconds of lap time. And that time loss, when the top 5 were so close, became a huge change in situation for Dave. That and the pack crash situation gives the impression of the pack being closed up by the boost, but it was not. Nobody in the top 5 improved their lap times from lap 36 apart from Conrad. Nobody in the pack went faster than what was previously capable with the boost, but Steve F1 not having to defend did allow him to do his normal speed and close the gap to the car ahead. So when the pack got closer together again, yes, they were a little closer to the leading 5, but not through any additional benefit of boost. One thing we have noticed though is that once the leader finishes the race, it seems second place now becomes first in the boost setting, and when they cross the line, third is now first, and when they cross the line, fourth is now first on the boost setting. So this could have an effect on which position becomes that first car with boost as cars cross the line. This, though, would only affect the last half of a lap at most, and not the remaining multiple laps of races. Pit stops. In most of the championships we have done, we have had pit stops in one way or another. In this current championship, we don't need to. And we do believe not having the pit stops is a big factor in the perception of how the boost works on GT7. And if we re-ran at the Daytona race with tyre wear and pit stops, then there are additional factors like the wear each person causes on their tyres having an effect, or how much fuel they use, but also when people pit from the front and the first car with no boost changes. Or should that be the first car with boost changes, to be a little more positive? The field gets jumbled and mixed up and all sorts of things would happen, whereas at the moment with no pit stops the situation is a more constant one, like Jason sitting in 6th for 90% of the Daytona race, not getting any boost, not quite quick enough to pull away from the pack, but the pack fighting too much to beat him. Why have the racers seemed to form into 2 groups? Well, this can now be explained and understood to happen because of the situation that the front half of the grid get no boost and the rear half of the grid get boost, with one car being that first car with no boost. Now, if that car is not fast enough to catch the cars ahead, then the pack will slowly drop back from the leading cars. At Daytona, the leading 5 were doing 1:12, while Jason was doing 1:13, meaning the only way the pack would close the gap to the leaders is either for a faster car to be the first with no boost, or for the drivers to work together to improve the lap times. As mentioned before, bring pit stops into the equation and the scenario has other factors. The next championship. We have already announced that for the next championship we would run a season like the current one, but with the strong boost on to see how the racing of that goes. This may be rediscussed by the admins to see if this is the best plan of action, because some of the racing we have seen this season has not been the best we have seen. Also, what difference would that make compared to the current season? A leader would not be able to run away, but the rest of the field wouldn't really change. If anything, a rerun of Daytona on the strong boost would yield the same result, but with the cars that have boost being slower. But would that make for harder to get alongside racing in the pack? Would it mean overtakes have to be worked at more? Would it make for better racing? These are questions we don't have the answers to. Side note, going into these tests, 2 of the admins were under the impression the boost worked in a gradual, incremental way across the field, while the other 2 were of the impression the boost worked from halfway up the grid. What none of us really expected was that the boost level would be the same for all cars getting it. This is one reason why it can be so easy to catch up to the pack with a big overspeed, get alongside, then all your speed is gone. And this is something all drivers should be aware of, and that just because you are approaching faster does not mean you can just go for it. Now, we apologise that we could not give more details earlier, but as I am sure you can appreciate, there was a lot for us to test, look into, compute, retest, re-download GT Sport and do it all again, then recompute and try and put it into an understandable format for all. And if you do have any questions, send it to the page. Thanks for your time. Us admins are off for a rest now.